What's up, everybody, and welcome to Enjoying the Review. I'm your host, Incomparable Zach Jones, joined by Ajay, our returning champ. Ajay, how you doing?
It's me, you guys. How's it going? Good, man. That's good.
Episode 4, Penguin, entitled Centani. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Ajay. My Italiano, not so good.
Hey, for me, that's amazing, man. All I know is, hey, paisano, gabagool.
We're going to lose our Italian
Are we
demographic
being
here.
racist? I can't tell.
I think we are, because I don't think I have any Italian in my background.
I definitely don't. Yeah.
What I thought your complexion. I figured for sure it was Italian heritage.
Yeah, all this tan, brown, dark people, whatever.
All right. So before we get into spoilers, I'm still really liking this show. This episode centered very much around Sophia. We got a lot of her this episode. We finally get her backstory.
She was the narrator in this episode the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, and this show, I will say, it continues to subvert expectations and like guesses that I had. So I enjoy that aspect of it. I will say, we'll get into it in spoilers, but like a part of me, and like maybe they'll show it in a future episode, but this episode did kind of leave me with like questions of like, well, how, because they kind of reference her getting out of Arkham and like her brother helping her, but now I'm kind of like, well, how did she get out? I kind of hope they show it in a future episode.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll get into it, but I'm not sure. We'll see. I have a theory.
Okay. But yeah,
if I can remember it.
Christina Milioti, man, she continues to be fantastic in this show, I think.
You know, it's weird. I think I remember her from an episode of How I Met Your Mother, of all things. I think she was like the last wife at the end or something. He married her? Isn't that the girl?
Oh, that could be. I never... Like, I think I saw a couple random episodes of that show, but it's not nothing I watched very much.
I could swear it was her, so...
I know I've seen her on like various things, because I know she was like on an episode of Black Mirror that I watched that was pretty good, and she was on a season of Fargo, season 2, I think. So I've seen her in just like there's 5 seasons. Well, it's one of those shows that like since every season is like a new casting, completely different. Like, he can make a new season anytime he wants. I'm sure that guy's got an open invitation, but I don't think they're like currently making one right now. But man, fingers crossed. I love that show, so I hope they keep making them.
Okay.
All right, man. Should we get into spoilers?
Let's do it.
All right. So this episode starts where the last episode ended, with Oswald and Sophia being held at gunpoint by the Maronis, and what's his name? Victor showed up, drove over the one guy, and that allowed Oswald to escape. I did like the end of the last episode. Like, he tells her, like, she's like, how can I trust you? And he's like, oh, I'm just going to have to keep showing you why. And then he immediately like betrays her and is like, no, we're not going back for it. And to be honest, my prediction of how this episode would start is like, he would go, oh no, I still need her. I have to turn back for it. And like, again, subverted my expectation, because that is not what happened.
And like, it's interesting that when you understand the dynamic that was prior to what is now, like with Cobb and like his relationship to the family, it is surprising that he carved out that role for himself. Like, he is kind of like, he is the writer of his own future and his destiny. Like, he's not letting anybody tell him who he is, even though people have been trying to.
Yeah. While the Maronis are talking to them, they basically mention that Oz killed Alberto. So like, now Sophia knows for sure that he did it, which is another thing that kind of subverted my expectations, because I figured she would find out eventually, but I figured it would be much later in the season.
Yeah, I thought so too. I think it's a good thing that they revealed it, though. I think it's going to add so much now to this whole season, like so much more like complexity and like, now she's out there and she's like snapped. Well, we don't know completely, but she's seen what Oswald did to her brother. We saw her reaction to it. She snapped, right? That's what it looked like to
Right.
me. So, yeah, I mean, now her focus is going to be on the guy who did that, right? So she's driven for that. He's trying to survive and, climb at the same time. Like, there's just a whole shit ton of things in the air right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I thought, they would be a team for most of the season. And then when we get to like second to last episode, then that would be revealed, something along those lines. But no, it's revealed much sooner. And now it's like, will there be circumstances where they still kind of have to work together? Or is it just like her versus him now,
Right,
it's
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. So while they're at gunpoint, Oswald tries to convince the Maronis that he was going to give them the new drug, which we learned about in the last episode that's called Bliss.
Yeah.
So then the escape happens, and Sophia sees Oswald, leave her for dead. And then I guess the Maronis, like, they could have easily killed her, but they just went after Oswald, I guess, and left her laying. And
Yeah.
I didn't actually see what happened to her. Did they like pistol whip her? Because she's bleeding from the head, but she wasn't shot or anything.
I couldn't. It's one of those TV show wounds. So they always like the blood on the head. Somebody got cracked or something, or knocked out.
Yeah,
typical.
so I don't even know if they showed, but yeah, somehow she got a head wound. So as they're leaving, Sophia calls her doctor, Dr. Rush, that we met in a prior episode, and calls him for help. And before she passes out, she tells him that it was Oz. So now we get a flashback, and most of this episode will be a flashback. We get a flashback to years prior when Oswald was working as Sophia's driver. And we meet her as she's giving a speech at this foundation they created in her mother's name. We find out that when she was 9 years old, her mother, I guess for YouTube, unalived herself by hanging.
Mm-hmm.
Which, as we get into this episode, we'll find out isn't actually true. So after she gives that speech at the foundation, Oswald offers her a cigarette, and they have a conversation where she tells him that they both deserve better jobs. Like, he should be more than a driver, and she feels like she should have a more important role.
Mm-hmm.
But then reporter Summer Gleason, which I'm now pretty convinced that whoever writes on this show is a fan of Batman the Animated Series, because Summer Gleason was a reporter they used on that show a lot, and like they've probably used her in the comics maybe a little bit, but I've read a lot of Batman comics and she's not featured prominently, so I like the little having her as a little nod with her there. So Summer confronts Sophia and tells her she thinks she could be doing more, and tells her about a string of women that have unalived themselves by hanging, which of course is the same way her mother died. So it turns out that most of these women worked for Sophia's father's businesses, like in his club. So then we get an even further flashback of when Sophia was 9 years old and she discovered her mom hanging in like a bedroom. So now we get a scene with, now in the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson, Falcone was played by John Turturro. So this is a younger version of Carmine, played by Mark Strong. And that guy, he's good in everything he's in, I feel like. He's a really strong actor.
What do I know him for? He usually plays like a villain in movies, right? Am I wrong?
A lot of times, yes. So he was actually in that terrible Green Lantern movie. He was Sinestro. And like he did a fine job. Like that movie's not bad because of him.
Was he also the bad guy in Shazam?
Yes, he was. Yeah,
Oh,
the first
right.
Shazam movie. Yes,
Yeah.
and he also played in the Kingsman movie. Not a bad guy
Oh,
in that
right.
one,
Yeah.
but
Remember that.
he's been in various things, character actor,
Right.
and a lot of things. But anytime he pops up, I've never seen him put in a bad performance.
No, he's usually pretty good. Yeah. Is he
Yeah,
American or English? I can't tell.
I'm pretty sure he's British.
Okay.
Yeah. So Carmine is angry with Alberto because he's not responsible like Sophia. You can kind of tell that he favorites Sophia.
Mhm.
Um, Sophia promises to make Alberto behave when the family comes over. And
I gotta say
Carmine,
though. Mhm.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, we'll get into it right here. Actually, yeah.
Carmine tells Sophia that he wants to break tradition and when the time comes, have Sophia replace him as the head of the table rather than Alberto.
Mhm.
Um, Sophia tells her dad that she never remembered her mom being depressed. And he says, well, she hid it well. And then, like, you can tell, he feels uncomfortable with this conversation. So, he changes the subject. And so this gives us our first kind of inkling that, oh, he did it,
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, okay, so this kind of didn't ring. I didn't feel like this depicted the person his position properly. Like I imagine he has lots of blood on his hands, right? And
Probably.
even though it's his family or whatever the case is, it seemed like if you're willing to kill that person, you probably didn't feel, too worried about talking, like, too nervous about killing him, right? Like he's done it plenty of times. He's killed another person, and he doesn't seem to be like regretful about it. So I don't think guilt is a problem here in that way. Uh, he just seemed overly like he seemed like he was compensating a little too much with regards to his feelings and what happened there. I feel like a person who's cold blooded and has lived that life for a long time. Penguin, he's not even the head of a family, and you could tell he would easily be like lying through his teeth. Oh, don't worry, it's nothing. But this guy shuts down. He's like, I don't even want to talk about it. It didn't seem like somebody who would be the kind of leader of a family who can manipulate people and roll I don't know. It seemed weird to me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I wrote it off as always. He just, doesn't want Sophia to suspect anything and he just wants to change the subject. But, like, yeah, I can see what you're saying. If he was more like
Savvy.
Oswald about it and just like, you
Yeah,
know, he may have made it so she didn't suspect at all. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Um, so yeah, you're kind of right, but maybe he's just not gifted like Oswald in that way,
Maybe.
and he's not as much of a silver tongue.
Mhm.
Um, so the next day, Oswald drives Alberto and Sophia. They buy their dad like a old watch for his birthday. And Alberto calls Oswald. He refers to him as the Penguin, and Sophia kind of defends him. And she's like, "Don't call him that." So we can kind of,
Sophia's the empathetic one between everybody.
oh,
Everyone.
for sure, for sure,
Yeah.
yeah. And we can tell kind of how her relationship with Oz has changed. Before and post
Yeah.
Arkham. Um, Sophia asks Alberto if their dad has ever had relations with the women that work at his club, and we can kind of tell Oswald is listening in on this conversation. And Alberto basically just tells her, don't worry about it. Like, our life is good. Don't, we don't need to look into what our dad's doing. Like, just enjoy our life. Um, but then Sophia, she had Summer Gleason's business card from before, so she decides to contact Summer, and she meets with her. Summer shows her the crime scene photos of the dead women, and it looks like the women were actually strangled to death rather than dying from hanging. They can see like marks on their neck that looks like, I guess strangled by hands rather than rope or whatever. Summer tries to get Sophia to get her the employee records of the dead women to help with the investigation. So we flash back one more time to when Sophia found her dead mother, and like Carmine enters the room and kind of like tries to like shield her from that. Now, there's like a brief moment here where like his glasses like kind of fall off and he puts them back on. Did that reveal like anything? Because I know later on in the episode she mentions that he had scratches on his hand. I didn't see
That
him at
must,
that.
yeah, I think it must have revealed his hands at the moment, like
Okay.
where she saw them. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, Summer is trying to get her to help out, but then Sophia like basically gets defensive and tells Summer, she defends her father. She says he's a good man and that she will go after her basically if she tries to publish anything.
Well, so Sophia looks in the trunk. I don't know exactly what's in that trunk that she sees. She reacts as if it's nothing, is what she tells the reporter. But like, she has this moment, like the music builds, and it's almost as if like she's had an epiphany or something's happened. It seems like she's lying to herself at that moment, right? She sees it. She's decided, shut down. I'm just gonna go back to what I'm supposed to be doing for
Yeah.
the family. But up until that moment, she was on that path to like trying to figure this out, and she was intrigued by it. She was doubting everything, but then she just completely shuts down when she sees the trunk. So, do we know what's in that trunk?
Um, all I remember seeing was like the crime scene photos and stuff. So I'm not actually sure what made her like change her tone so drastically.
Maybe it was just seeing it all and like putting the pictures together or something, or seeing that maybe my dad did this to my mom. How could that It could just be any kind of emotional response.
Or like maybe like yeah, she just doesn't want to admit it to herself, that sort of
That's
thing.
that's definitely yeah. But we see that later on too.
So she gets back in the car, and Oswald tries to tell her that she shouldn't be talking to reporters, and she basically tells him just to shut up and drive.
Yeah.
So later on, she's at a party with the family, and Oswald walks up to Sophia and tells her that her father wants to see her. And so we find out that Oz told Carmine about Sophia meeting with the reporter. So now he's mad. Sophia tells him that she told the reporter off. Carmine reveals that there is an open investigation into him for murder. Um, he asked her why she didn't come to him, and she says she thought the whole story was BS and didn't want to bother him. He asked if she thinks he did it, and she says, of course not. Um, Carmine says he's disappointed in her, and he's like, this was all supposed to be yours, insinuating that I guess that is, no longer the case. She tells him that she knows there's an explanation for the scratches he had on his hands the day her mom was found dead. Um, and so Carmine tells her that she's confused and sick and needs to leave now, and that Oswald will drive her home. You know, I, I mean, I guess the big thing is that he doesn't know what she actually told the reporter. But my thing is, if he at this point knows, at this point, he probably either knows that Summer Gleason is dead or that he's already sent somebody to kill Summer Gleason. So I'm surprised he thinks he has to do something as drastic as sending her to Arkham rather than just like, because he could honestly probably just like bully her into never talking to anybody.
He could probably
Um,
bully Summer Gleason into never talking to anybody. Like, yeah, like nobody has to talk. He could easily solve this problem. But once she figures out that he can kill her and he's on to her, I imagine she's not going to publish the story. So yeah, this could all have been handled with his powers, his position,
But maybe he just like felt so betrayed by Sophia that he was like felt he had to punish her, I guess.
It did seem like there was a he was very manipulative, and he definitely took advantage of the power dynamic in that way. Like he made her seem like he gaslit her hard, like big time. So yeah, and he wanted her a certain way. It's like those typical tropes, like where the evil, powerful father who like is wants the best from the best and wants his kid to be like great and everything. Like he wants her to be like strong and not weak, and not bend to like emotions or have doubts and stuff. So when he sees that as like something to look down on, it seems like.
I also thought it was clever of them to they kind of did a callback to the Batman movie because Carmine tries to strangle Selena Kyle in that
Hmm.
movie. So now it's like, oh, he actually had a history of like strangling women to death,
Okay,
so yeah.
I'll get that. Huh. Oh, also I forgot. There was also a point where the father calls the brother weak. So it seems like the
Yeah.
the dynamic was always that Alberto was always just kind of like the runt between the two, but he was a boy, right? There was also that dynamic. So she was the girl. She never got the attention she deserved, and her father finally, puts her on the pedestal and says, "You're the one." She just wants to do everything she can to prove herself to him, and he's just got her in the palm of his hands.
Yeah, they established that Alberto was like a big screw up, like
Yeah.
did drugs, didn't do what he was supposed to do, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Um, so they leave, and Oswald tries to tell Sophia that he was just looking out for her because she's mad that he told on her. Um, all of a sudden, they get pulled over by the cops, and the cops arrest Sophia for the murder of Summer Gleason and all the other women. Now, this is one thing. Okay, so I get that Gotham is corrupt. Falcone has all this power, but there is absolutely zero physical evidence linking Sophia to any of these crimes.
Right.
And so it seems like even if she got like I know the thing is she never technically goes to trial, but it seems God, I don't know. This seemed a bit flimsy actually getting her into Arkham when it's seemingly she could easily prove that she did not commit these murders. You know what I mean?
Well, I get the impression that it was all corruption that got her in there. Like, I don't think there was a way for her to escape the situation. I imagine her father used his strings to like get her in that position to where she had no way of fighting back. Because that's why
Yeah,
she didn't even have a trial.
we find out in a minute that he's going to get the whole family to collude and write these letters saying like, she's mentally unwell and all that sort of stuff. But it's like it almost seems like they could have just done that without accusing her of the murders because I just don't see her. I just don't see their society as corrupt as it may be. Like you know, fully buying into that she committed the murders when it's so easily to prove that she didn't. I don't know. It just that's the one kind of thing in this show that I don't know if logic totally holds up. But I guess you just
Yeah.
got to say, it's this comic book world where things are just so corrupt. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that is Gotham. That's the whole. Like everything's corrupt over there. You can't do anything without it being corrupt, I imagine. Uh, yeah, I don't know, man. I can't make sense of that either. I think it's just Gotham is a cesspool. That's why I always imagine. That's what they show it as.
Right. Sophia actually asked Oswald if he killed Summer, and he says no, he doesn't know what's going on. And I think he was being truthful in that moment. Like, I don't think Carmine let Oswald in on exactly what he was going to do to Sophia.
Like we talked about it earlier, and this is what I just forgot to say. Like the whole evidence in the trunk, like she didn't reveal anything herself. She doesn't say anything. I get that Oswald just had to snitch on her to like get his place, in the family, and that the father reacted based on not knowing what she said. But I mean, so this reporter, if you're really trying to shut her, I know we just talked about, but if you're really trying to shut her up, aren't you going to make her more suspicious by putting your daughter, who she just met with, in Arkham? Isn't that going to just drive her more to look into things? Like she's on the right path? If she's really this go-getter?
Yeah. Again, yeah, it's one of those things where like I
Maybe
guess the
I'm
thing
thinking too
is
much.
he feels like if he kills Summer fast enough and gets his people in Arkham like to control Sophia fast enough that they can't do anything. I guess is the thinking.
I mean, yeah, I guess Summer never talked to anybody about the story, I suppose. Or...
That's the other thing, and this happens in other fictions too, where like yeah, a reporter will be killed, and it's like, oh, only they knew anything about their story. They never talk.
all the witnesses, all the
Their
people who they...
editors.
Exactly.
Like, you don't think Summer's editor would have known that she was working on this murder story? She was just doing
Right.
it on her own time or something,
Yeah. If she's talking to a mobster for information, she's probably talked to other people for information too.
Exactly, yeah. So yes, she finds out that Carmine and several family members made sworn statements about her that she has a history of mental illness, including that she's harmed animals. Sophia finds out that she will be in Arkham for at least 6 months until her trial begins. So she's taken into Arkham and she's processed at Arkham. They do the whole thing where they strip her down naked, like fire the hose on her, that sort of thing. And okay, so here she's introduced to the guy that runs Arkham, a guy by the name of Ventrix, and Dr. Rush, her doctor, who we've already been introduced to. Okay. Oh, and she's told that during these 6 months, she will have no contact with anybody in the outside world. So this is another thing that, uh, freaks her out because she, was probably under the impression that at least she would have visits with her brother, things like that. So she's locked up in a cell, and all of a sudden, like, a bolt comes loose from the wall, and she looks into it, and she can see another female inmate named Magpie who starts to talk to her. I was actually going to look this up because Magpie is like a comic character, and in the comics, like, I totally forget like what her backstory and is. I can't remember. I was going to look it up and then I totally forgot. But here she's just basically a crazy woman. There's not much to her.
I never knew what a magpie was, so like maybe last year. It's just some bird in Australia or something.
Yeah, it's a bird. I thought they have them here though too, don't they?
Did they? Oh, did they? Oh, I didn't know that. It's a strange name. I don't think of a bird when I think of the word magpie.
Yeah, I knew it was a bird. Yeah. So the next day, Sophia sits by Magpie at lunchtime, and Magpie gets the red medicine, which is the basis for the bliss drug. And Sophia can see what it does to her. It just like kind of, makes her go into La La Land, space off. All of a sudden, Sophia is attacked by one of the inmates who is allowed to walk around unchained. So most of the inmates are chained up, but for some reason, there's this skinny inmate woman who is not chained up. And so she beats up Sophia. So Sophia has a session with Dr. Rush and tells him that her father framed her for the murder. Sophia says that she can tell that the doctor doesn't believe her, and he says that he's only there to help her. So now guards put Sophia in the lunchroom with the woman that attacked her. They chain the other woman up and give Sophia a fork. And so that Dr. Ventrix comes in, and, Sophia tells him, like, oh, your father, put you up to this, right? I'm supposed to, like, kill this woman. Well, what ends up happening is the chained up woman attacks Sophia and gets the fork from her. And then she just, unalives herself with the fork. And so they don't explicitly say it here, but like I imagine since they have her fingerprints on that fork, they probably like said that she murdered that woman. I also like I kind of wonder like if that inmate was like an Easter egg of some sort, like if she looks like a character from the comics. I couldn't place her.
I couldn't tell you. You know way more about DC than I do. I couldn't. These Easter eggs are like lost on me until somebody explains them to me.
So Sophia's strapped down and given electroshock therapy. Now, this is something that I think at this point is a bit of a cliche. Like anytime somebody is abused in like a mental hospital, they use electroshock therapy, and I'm like, is this something that's been used since like the 1950s?
Well, definitely is a tool that they use. I don't know, but
it's just like it seems like something they probably haven't used in a long time. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know.
I don't think they. Yeah, I don't hear about it. So who knows? There's all kinds of methods, I suppose.
But it just seems like something that I've seen in a lot of like movies and TVs over the
They
years.
Like, wood in their mouth or something. And just like whatever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So back in her cell, Sophia finds like a this made me wonder until they revealed what it was, but she basically finds like where like a piece of metal or a piece of paper on her cell wall kind of rips off and it shows like a pattern underneath it. And she's like, what is this? So now there is a montage where Sophia keeps getting electroshock therapy and more paper has been being peeled off the wall and kind of revealing like a wallpapery design underneath. Dr. Rush begins to get concerned and he asks Ventrix, what if she's telling the truth? So, seemingly like he is not in on it, it seems like. So it's finally revealed that paper on the wall is a hallucination of Sophia's. That was the wallpaper that was in the room where she found her dead mother. So Sophia finally gets visited by Alberto. Alberto tells Sophia that she's not going to court because her doctor is going to claim that she's unfit to stand trial. So I forget her dialogue here, but basically we get the sense that she's kind of just lost hope. Like she's like, her father did it. Mm-hmm. He successfully like masterminded this thing, and she's doomed.
She's given up at this point. And it's.
Alberto swears to her that he'll find a way to get her out of there.
And this is a callback to the first episode where nobody visited her. Now we're seeing how bad it was. The whole family betrayed her, but Alberto was the only one who didn't. He was actually there for her. He fought for her, and that's why their whole life they've always had a great relationship, and we're just seeing more of that. So.
Yeah, now we kind of see why she was so hell bent on getting revenge for her brother's murder, because he really was
always there for her.
Yeah, he was the only one that stood up for her. Mm-hmm. Dr. Rush tells her that he did not know that Ventrix was going to file the report on her that said she was unfit to stand trial. So Sophia puts it together that Magpie was spying on her for Dr. Ventrix and giving him information. So she attacks her and I think kills her, right?
Yeah.
Like she smashes her head a bunch of times.
She looked pretty bad after at the end of the... Yeah, she smashed her head into the table.
They didn't explicitly say she was dead, but I think she was.
Yeah, I don't know.
So the guards run up and they inject Sophia with something in her neck, and she passes out. So now finally we're back in present day. Sophia is woken up by Dr. Rush, and he apparently took her to his house. Which he does come off as a creep, doesn't he?
Him? Yeah. I can yeah, for sure. He's really weird.
Like he's like didn't call. like a hospital or something, take her to a hospital. He took her back to his house, and like
Mm-hmm.
in the other episode, he was like holding her and like being kind of
Yeah.
creepy.
Yeah.
Sophia tells Dr. Rush that she feels like an idiot and that she should have killed Oswald when she had the chance. She says that now she has no resources, and if she doesn't go to Sicily, her uncle will kill her. So Dr. Rush says that maybe she should go, and that she deserves a fresh start. And so here, I think Sophia also kind of senses that Dr. Rush is a bit of a creep because she tells him, that he enjoyed the control that he had over her when she was at Arkham. He tries to say, that's not true, and that he and Alberto helped get her out of there. Yeah. She tells him that for 10 years, men lied about her and said she was sick. And she's like, now I'm back in the world. And I think she says she realizes that, like, the world is sick,
Mm-hmm.
Before she leaves, she tells Dr. Rush that he was right. She does deserve a fresh start. So this leads to Sophia showing up at a family dinner, and she interrupts her uncle Luca. She tells about how she was locked up in Arkham, and she kind of confronts them about, how they all wrote the untrue letters about her.
Mm-hmm.
She tells them that tomorrow she will start a new life, and she gives a toast to new beginnings. And then she says the title of this episode, Centani. So I don't know if that means new beginnings or if it's just like some sort of celebratory phrase. Not sure. It's never explained.
Yeah. So like she toasting something she's about to do. I imagine so.
Right. One thing I didn't mention is at the table is her cousin Carla, who we met a couple episodes ago, and her young daughter Gia.
Who we saw.
Before she kind of has this serious conversation with him, she tells Gia to like go to her room or whatever. So late at night, Sophia lures Gia out of the house with like a piece of cake, and she gets her to sleep in the greenhouse with her. And she wakes up in the morning and puts on a gas mask, and we find out. And by the way, when I've kind of figured this is what was happening because I'm like, she's definitely going to kill the family, and like if she's staying outside, I'm like, she must be like poisoning them with gas or something. And sure enough, that's what it was. She poisoned them with gas while they slept. So she goes in there. They're all dead except for she keeps Johnny Vitti alive, and she tells him, we need to talk. And that's where this episode ends. Now, I didn't notice. She must have kept like his window open or had some sort of ventilation in his room.
I couldn't tell you. She must have planned something because he should have died otherwise. So.
Or maybe she just had the vents closed off. She must have done something to where he was getting proper ventilation.
Yeah.
So this show, it's taken big swings. Like she killed basically almost her whole family. So it's definitely interesting.
No, it's a lot of escalation. I don't think I've ever seen a crime family show. I mean, they all have like suspense and drama, but this is really every episode is a lot of twists and turns. It's the ante goes up every time. It's just it's fun. It's kind of like reminds me of Cabin in the Woods in that way. That like it just keeps building and keeps building. It gets more and more haywire and stuff, and yeah, it's interesting.
I never watched Sopranos. I'm sure people are probably like, "Oh, this is just like Sopranos light." Oh yeah, it said your recording stopped because you had an incoming call.
I'm good now.
Oh, it's good now. Okay. Well, I think we're almost done. Any kind of final thoughts on the episode before we do wrap up?
I liked it, man. I'm just looking for the next episode, and I more than anything want to see what happens with Sophia now. I mean, I get that Penguin didn't get much time. I love seeing him, but now that there's more variables involved, I want to see how they all come together. Right?
Yeah, so I'm guessing next episode, will be back to Oswald. Mm-hmm. See how he escapes the Maronis and all that. And yeah, I have to imagine now Sophia is basically, the head of the Falcone family. So yeah, it's kind of like, there's the Falcones, there's still the Maronis, and then Oswald. So it's interesting to see how it'll all come together.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. I got a good feeling that this will end the proper way as opposed to some of the shows we've been watching lately. So the writing's been really good.
Yeah, for sure. I'm still, this show is still probably like a, pretty high, like between an 8 and 8.5 out of 10 for me. I think it's very, very strong.
You know what's really cool to me though? Like I still don't know, and I think this is cool. Like we have some understanding of who Oswald is to some extent, but I don't know what his relationship is with that kid. If he's so easy to betray Sophia, if it's so easy for him to like act the way he does, like look at the way he was like before he even rose to the top. He was kind of a peon, right? But like he's always known his own identity, which is like very snake-like. He'll throw anybody into the bus. He's very sneaky. He cuts. He stabs people in the back, and he's working with this kid who's very naive. And he seems to have taken him under his wing, but we've seen a couple times now where he does lash out. Is he willing to throw his kid on the bus for his means? Like, are we about to see that at the end of this, or what's going on?
I think if it comes down to it, he will. Mm-hmm. He'll feel bad about it, like, because he does like the kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what I suspect will happen. Like I said, my prediction for this show is like he will eventually, quote unquote, win, but somebody will die. I think that kid will either die or be in prison by the end of the season.
Yeah,
I think something bad is going to happen to him. Okay. That's just my prediction.
You
never know, though. Maybe he'll just be end the show being the Penguins, right hand man.
Maybe. Yeah. But I think that's definitely something about the Penguins' character that's still in question.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to finding out. Okay. I'm not sure if this season is 8 or 9 episodes, but either way, we're about halfway through. So let's fingers crossed we can end strong. Yeah. But guys, I think that'll do it for this episode. If you will, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also subscribe in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. Leave us thumbs up, comments, positive reviews, all that good stuff. If you like, you can follow me over on Twitter/X at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. But until next time, we hope you're enjoying the review. Bye, guys.
Take care.